Hello, my creative friends, and welcome to another episode of The Daily Prompt. In this episode, what I want to talk about is who Fast Screenplay is not right for. Now, over the years, I've interacted with thousands of writers along the way, personally, one-on-one, and I've come to believe that there are different types of writers. I believe that every single writer, every writer on the planet, must do all 7 steps of the complete process, simply because we all have ideas in our head. We all have to turn those ideas into a story, create that into a screenplay, make sure that screenplay is really working effectively, and then connect with a producer that it's right for. Now, it's possible that you'll get an assignment, in which case some of those steps are a little bit inverted, but you still have to do all of those steps along the way. And by the way, I have a webinar that I'm about to do the next iteration of, where there's going to be a link here somewhere. So join up, sign up for the 7 steps to writing and selling your screenplay webinar. I'll go into all this stuff in way more detail. So I believe every writer has to go through all 7 steps. It's literally impossible to succeed without them. And if you do them, it's almost impossible not to succeed because of how the steps work together and how they help you to actually iterate. So I've had a few people over the recent months who have checked out Fast Screenplay and decided that it was kind of not for them. And the reason tends to come back to this idea that Fast Screenplay is set up to do 1 step at a time, that you do 1 step each day. That's the maximum pace you can learn the system at, is 1 step per day. Now, this really frustrates a lot of people, and a lot of people want to sign up for it to get all the content all at once. Now, Fast Screenplay is not for that kind of person. Let me make that perfectly clear. If your goal is simply to acquire information, simply to put ideas in your head, and then try to figure out how to utilize those, then Fast Screenplay is not going to work for you. If you're not going to actually commit to taking new action every single day, or 5 days a week, or at least on some weekly or monthly consistent basis, if you're not going to consistently take action, it is my contention that you're never going to develop those skills. The way the human brain works is, and I've talked about this before, I apologize if I'm repeating myself, but those of you who have seen this before or heard this information before, it's good to have this reinforced in your mind, like what I'm talking about. When you do something new, your neural pathways, your synapses, your brain, the neural connections, they fire in their different parts of the brain depending on what it is you're trying to do, and they make new connections. Now, the first time you do something, they're trying to figure out which connections are actually going to work. But once you do something and it starts to work, those connections start strengthening. So as you do it again and again and again, that pathway strengthens and strengthens and strengthens. And if you continue to practice, eventually the brain knows that pathway needs to be sort of like a super fast pathway so that you can eventually do this more or less intuitively. And so it starts to build this tube around the connection. It's called a myelin sheath. Look it up, Neuroscience 101 or 202, I don't know where it is. Anyway, the myelin sheath forms around this synaptic connection, which enables the neurons to fire and communicate faster. So when you do something intuitively, it's largely because you have these strong synaptic connections. You have this brain function that is sort of working on autopilot. The only way you can form those connections is if you do the same thing consistently. This is why practice makes perfect. This is why if at first you don't succeed, try again. This is why you have to put in the hours to do that. When you're learning the guitar, you have to practice your chords over and over and over again. When you're playing the piano, you have to do your scales over and over and over again until the motor skills become second nature, until those synaptic connections form, get stronger, create the myelin sheath so it's intuitive, and you're then able to fire, right? So this is the same thing happens with writing. Now, the problem is when people look at Fast Screenplay, they think of it as something different to what it is. They think it's a course, first of all. They think it's about the information in Fast Screenplay. We have information in Fast Screenplay you will not find anywhere else, but it's not about the information per se. It's about the process. It's about building those synaptic connections. It's about taking action every day or 5 days a week or consistently once a week or with some degree of consistent regularity. So if you were to get everything on day one, and we have tested this out with Fast Screenplay, if you get everything on day one, what you do is you jump to those pieces of the information that you want. But the information was designed with all the setup in mind. That piece of information is just a dangling, free-flowing piece of information. It means nothing. It does nothing. It doesn't help you in any way unless you have the skill leading up to it. So the way we built the process is you develop those skills as you go along, and we present this information on the assumption that you already have these skills that we've built up. So it doesn't work if you jump around. It doesn't work if you jump ahead. So the later phases of the system are not available to you on day one. And if that's going to frustrate you, if you're going to be really angry with me and you think I'm out for your money, you think all you're trying to do is string me along with the subscription by drip feeding it and treating you like a child, ultimately, you're not understanding what Fast Screenplay is, and you're not understanding what it's about. And ultimately, you're not going to get any benefit out of it. We offer Fast Screenplay at cost. If you don't want to do it, that's okay. We're not going to make or lose any money on you not joining us. Don't join us if you don't want to actually develop those neurons, if you don't want to develop those mental pathways, if you don't want to build those connections that are going to make the creative process organic and intuitive. Because that's what Fast Screenplay is about. It's not a screenwriting course that's going to tell you what to put where on your script. If you want to use a 3-act structure, we'll show you how to do that. If you want to use a non-linear, out of order 5-act structure, we can show you how to do that as well. But we're going to start with the idea, and we're going to develop that idea into the story. We're going to write the story. We're going to go through a rewrite process that handles all those details, that handles all those techniques. But it's not about the information. It's about learning the process so that as you go through the process and the pieces of the process snap together, you can then do the process. You can use the process quickly, more and more quickly. It's the goal, the intention is to do it fast, is to do it quickly as you develop those skills and build toward mastery. At the end of the day, we want to make films with writers who've been through the process. We want to make films with people who have the skills that 99% of writers don't have and will never develop because they're not willing to do this consistent, ongoing daily action. So how are we going to work with those people? We need you to go through the process and develop those skills and build that neural pathway so that when we go into the writer's room, you can actually develop material quickly. We can refine that material quickly. We can work together to align our ideas and make sure that we're all on the same page, and so that we're building projects that we can legitimately go out and produce, not just spitting out screenplays on a wing and a prayer and a hope that somehow, somewhere, some way, someone is going to be able to do something with this. If you're creating in a vacuum, if you sit down when you're inspired and blast out a bunch of pages and then you don't touch it for another month and you think that that's the only way that you can do it, fast is not going to be for you. I'll show you how to do that way more effectively. One of the phases of the system is literally about exactly that. But the reality is, unless you have guardrails, unless you've developed your story before you sit down and do that, you're going to go way off course. It's not going to work. And because you're only working while you're inspired, ultimately you're not developing those neural pathways. You're not developing the brain skills. You're not building the connections that make it possible to do this fluidly, intuitively, organically, quickly, in a way that the realities of film production need screenwriters to be able to do it. Keep in mind, we didn't set this up this way because, hey, this is a clever way that we can throw something out there for the screenwriting community. We set this up this way because if we're on set and we need a writer to be able to adjust or adapt or change or modify something according to whatever production needs we have at that particular moment in time, and the writer's there, and we're sitting around going, hey, you got something for us? We need you to be able to create quickly, intuitively, in a way that works for you, that's creatively satisfying for you, but matches with our needs in the real world production environment. To develop those neural pathways, to develop that intuitive ability to create quickly, intuitively, instinctively, and in a way that's in sync with all these hundreds of different elements, we need you to have that skill set. And so because we need you to have that skill set, this is set up and works best, we've tested it, works best one step at a time. So you're building a new full immersive skill each day. Now, I know that what I've done here is talked a lot about Fast Screenplay. I know you guys tune out when I start talking about Fast Screenplay. But at the end of the day, it is something that's different in the marketplace here. It's something that is different in the screenwriting world. And because of that, I think a lot of people have a great misunderstanding about it. There is insight in Fast Screenplay that's different to anything you get anywhere else, simply because I'm including the producer's perspective in the entire process, woven it into the process so that you can be more in sync with your target through your actual creative process. But more than that, much more than that, it's about building that consistent habit. It's about developing those neurons, about creating something, about turning your creative process into something that's instinctive, intuitive, and able to get you to your target in a way that the producer can actually use and say yes to. So if the idea of a step per day process is not for you, Fast Screenplay is not for you. If all you want to do is absorb as much information as possible and then figure it out in your own way and try to make sense of it all and kind of reinvent the wheel that I've built, go for it. It's totally okay. And in fact, I still wish you well. And in fact, I still want you to succeed. And in fact, if you have any questions about anything or you need help with anything whatsoever, comment on this, send me an email, communicate with us. Whether you join us in Fast Screenplay or not, I want you to succeed. The thing is, I simply believe that you're going to succeed faster if you develop this consistent ongoing action. One of the big challenges we have with Fast Screenplay is that people get into it and they so overthink each of the steps that they completely lose sight of the fact that it's not about the steps. It's not even about the project that you're developing the first time through. It's about understanding that process. It's about developing those muscles. It's about building those neural pathways and those neural connections. And so it's essential to keep moving forward. So my goal is to get you to the end as fast as you possibly can. Now, that's going to take a while because there's a lot to cover. There's a lot of detail to cover, and you need to be able to do that intuitively. So if you're not willing to take serious action, if you're not willing to sort of jump into full immersion experience mode and learn by doing, then the system's simply not going to work for you because you're not going to give it your all. You're not going to trust it. You're not going to trust me. You're going to then do less and less. And you're not going to be building those pathways and actually building as you go. So you're going to miss out on the value of the later steps because you didn't really do the earlier steps. So it's all interconnected. So let's turn this into a daily prompt for you, assuming you're not going to join us, which would be foolish, but whatever. I'm just kidding. If you don't want to join us, what's the takeaway from all this? The takeaway from all this is you ultimately, to actually get where you're trying to go, you can't do it by occasionally, when you're inspired, blasting out some pages and then waiting for the next time you're inspired. You have to take consistent, ongoing daily action. You have to build those neural pathways. You have to experience. You have to practice. You have to do. Now, if you're only doing, but you're making the same mistakes over and over and over again, then you're going to get stuck. And eventually you're going to put in so much effort and so much work and with no results that you're ultimately going to just give up on this adventure. And you're going to think to yourself that screenwriting is this impossible thing and nobody can really do this. Nothing could be further from the truth. There is unlimited opportunity available to us today. Unlimited opportunity available to us today. We can't take advantage of all of the opportunity because writers are not developing these skills at this level in this way. They're focused entirely on the Hollywood studio system and the spec market and all this stuff that's like, okay, so what you need to do, what you need to focus on for your journey is, how can I make my action consistent? How can I take ongoing action every day? Whether it's 5 minutes, whether it's an hour, whether it's 5 hours, depending on how much time you have, you can carve out a few minutes for yourself every day. It's essential to keep taking those actions. With FAST, it's all focused. It's all designed for you. So all you have to do is just do the next step and keep moving forward, and you're golden. If you want to do it on your own, simply carve out, figure out how much time you can afford every day. Make a commitment, do it, follow through with it so that you can build those connections. A lot like playing the piano or playing the guitar. This takes some time to learn how to do and to develop these actual skills. There's something like 200 elements that you have to learn and master that all weave in there perfectly. You got to make sure your subplots and your subtext and your story world and all that, all the choices that you make in each of those areas affect positively and work in conjunction with all the rest of your story. All those elements. How are you going to strategically do that? You have to take action every single day. That's your goal. That's today's daily prompt. If you want to join me in FAST so that I can show you what this is all about, click the links at the end. If you don't want to, totally fine. Pop a comment in the comments below. Let me know what you're thinking. Let me know what your approach is going to be. Let me know how we can go about helping you, even if it's not through that process. So that's today's daily prompt. Thank you so much for watching. I want to say that we're going to be doing this as a weekly show now, so I hope to see you next week. If you have any questions in the meantime, pop them in the comments below or on the comments of any of the videos on this channel. I read them all. I answer them all, as you can see if you read through the comments, and I'm here to help. So thanks for watching. See you next time.